Alrighty, Mormons. I hope you understand that there's a particular last days parable about the Lord of the feast going first to the rich, but then the rich refusing to go to the dinner feast. And so the Lord then goes to the streets to get those who would come to the feast. I hope you understand where you fit in that analogy. Anyway, today, 14th of March, it's the first quarter. And why is that significant? Because we got a supermoon coming. A supermoon during a certain special time of the year. St. Patsy's Day. What is significant about St. Patrick's Day? You know, St. Patrick, the guy who was kidnapped as a child, taken to Ireland as a slave, and then when he got old enough, he escaped and went back to England, and then became a Catholic priest. And his first assignment, go to Ireland. and then helped the church there in Ireland. Interesting thing is that myths were created about St. Patrick. For example, the famous one of all, la 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 la, is that he supposedly chased out the snakes from Ireland. And the reality is that the snakes were long gone in Ireland before him. Yeah, he's attributed to a story about being someone who battles snakes, serpents. So why would that be significant? And 17th of March is his death day. We celebrate his death, interestingly enough, rather than his birthday. St. Patrick is a symbol of the man-child, as John the Revelator has it. The man-child battles the serpent dragon. Isn't that interesting? So St. Patrick became a saint and was attributed as a symbol of the man-child for his death. Very interesting. So what else is important about the 17th of March? Well, yes, Mormons. Women, you'd be correct, because men don't know. That's the anniversary of Joseph Smith founding the Relief Society. 17th of March, 1842. And yes, when women got the priesthood. If you're not familiar with the Egyptian story, I can't help you. So, the Egyptian story. Osiris, first king on earth of all the land, of Egypt specifically, but was considered the whole earth. Set, his brother, doesn't like him, wants to be king instead. So what does he do? No elections, he just kills him. Takes over the throne. As a result, Osiris's wife, Isis, is pregnant. She has to flee for her life and the life of her child, because the child is the heir to the throne. So she flees into the wilderness. Revelation chapter 12 becomes very significant because John is talking directly about that Egyptian myth and saying it has to do with the last days. And so the child Horus is born. And Isis is shown as having priesthood powers. Thus she symbolizes the church. John the Revelator, according to Joseph Smith, the woman represents the church, just like Isis. As a result, when the child is old enough and has received the endowment temple ritual, this is of the Egyptians. Yes, it's very similar to Mormon. And he's educated and endowed with power from on high and goes back to the kingdom to battle against his uncle to take back the throne that belongs to him, of whom his father originated. So the 17th of March, significant for the establishment of the priesthood. Interestingly, the date that John the Revelator gives, yes, he gives a date with an arrangement of the heavens, with planets and certain zodiac signs, and the moon and sun also in conjunction. That's a time reference, a specific date. And so we have to have a computer program to help us figure out what that date is. Back then, they figured it all out manually. They were that good. At least the Egyptians were. Sort of lost the knowledge with the Dark Ages. But yeah, that's King Herod, the sign of Jesus' birth. We saw the star, and therefore we knew the child had been born. Where has he been born? Priests. Oh, King Herod, it shows that he was born in the house of bread. Yep. House of bread is where the constellation Virgo is. And so, yes, interestingly, that particular date of John the Revelator's for the future has now come and gone. The 23rd of September, 2017. Now, this is going to be a hard one for you Mormons, but can you women remember what was on that specific day? You should remember it was a big event for women in the church. It was the first time that the Relief Society meeting was a part of General Conference. Before, it wasn't a part of General Conference. Sure, they'd put it in with the General Conference if you type it up, but this was the first official time it was considered part of General Conference. And the Relief Society president was brand new. In April, the woman who was the primary president over children was made the Relief Society president. Catching on? If you're not, I just want to bang my head. That's why the parable is that Jesus, tries the rich, but then they, fail to respond to the invitation, so he then has to go to the poor. What else is about the 17th of March? You guys don't know this because you're not watching my videos. 17th of March, 1839. Ooh, what happened in 1839, Travis? Well, we have to go back a year. 1838. This is what I've now called the leadership crisis in the church. Brigham Young had converted specific persons throughout western New York, and those specific persons decided to band together once in the Mormon church to create a secret Danite organization, an underground movement within the church unbeknownst to Joseph Smith, led by Brigham Young. This Danite group, and I've discussed why they would want to do this in other videos, but this Danite group in 1838 acted. They made their move, and the church leaders were chased out, threatened out, and of the leadership positions and from the church. So David Whitmer also was one among those who were chased out. You know, even his life was threatened, and the life of his family was threatened. And he talks about that in his book that he publishes in 1888. And but somebody else, Thomas B. Marsh. He was the president of the Traveling 12. That's the missionary organization. They had no leadership capacity, but that's the same organization that Brigham Young was in. And they now chased out their president, which elevated Brigham Young as president. So once Thomas B. Marsh was gone, and Brigham Young took over as president of the Traveling 12, in 1839, on March 17th, Brigham Young, excommunicated Thomas B. Marsh. No authority to do so. Joseph Smith was in jail. Now, how do we know that he had no authority? Because Brigham Young also booted out of the Traveling 12 William Smith. William Smith is the younger brother of Joseph Smith. So when Joseph Smith got out of jail, guess what Joseph Smith did? Put back William Smith in the Traveling 12. Do you think that would not piss off Brigham Young? You bet it did. Because after Joseph Smith was murdered, guess what Brigham Young did? He not only kicked out William Smith again from the Traveling 12, he then excommunicated him for good measure. Yeah, I'm sure it's all innocent and that it was called of God to do so, huh? So yeah, 17th of March, 1839, Thomas B. Marsh, president of the Traveling 12, was excommunicated. Sort of like a death, isn't it? St. Patrick, Death Day, Excommunication Day, Women Getting the Priesthood Day. Interesting. So here we have the 17th of March coming up, right before a supermoon. So let me show you the sign in the heaven for the 17th of March. We'll do a little visual picture thing for you here at the same time as I talk to you. Alright, this is the moon's location on the 17th of March. The Sunday And of course you guys say, well, so what? I don't care about the stars in the sky and their positions and the significance of them, even though Joseph Smith altered Revelation 12 to indicate that this is what's necessary to be done. So despite your claims that this is not essential for eternal salvation, well, it is actually. So, oops. That's why you guys don't get invited to the supper. Anyway, the moon symbolizes religion. And like I said, this is in between the first quarter and the supermoon. So it's in preparation for the supermoon that's coming up in the middle of the week. And also significant is Purim on the supermoon. I'll get to that in a minute here. Notice that it's exiting the Crab constellation and is therefore in alignment as being in front of the mouth of Leo the Lion. Leo the Lion is symbolic of Judah, the symbol of the Jews. Yet Judah is phonetically the same as Utah. Utah. Spell past. And you'll say, well, which word past? Because there's two oh, got it. See? Phonetically the same. So the religion symbol is in front of the mouth of the Lion of Judah. And, well, is this the man-child? Is this what you're talking about? No, the man-child's been in the Serpent constellation and has been battling the serpent. And I'll get to that in, well, no, I intended to do another video to show the whole last days events of the man-child. So yeah, he's battling the serpents right now. He's already been through the judgment, and now he's battling the serpent, just like St. Patrick. Oh, starting to catch on now? Probably not. Anyway, this is St. Patrick's Day symbolism on Sunday. Okay, here's the supermoon on the 20th of March. Notice, supermoon in the woman constellation of Virgo. Woman, with Purim starting on at 6 p.m. for the Jews. If you're not familiar with Purim, it is the became the Jewish holiday, even though, interestingly enough, it has to do with the northern tribes who were taken by Assyria. This is an Assyrian document rather than a Babylonian document of the Jewish captivity like Daniel is. Nevertheless, notwithstanding, it's in the Jewish scripture. And if you're not familiar with it, Esther, I have to remember to pronounce it in the manner that you know, because the manner that I know is different. Esther is one of the captured Israelites, and she is so beautiful that she's in the king's harem, though I don't think they ever talk about her mating with the king, but she has the ear of the king and is able to present herself before the king when most other people wouldn't get an audience with the king just out of the blue. So yeah, she's a favorite of the king. And then there's Mordecai, who's sort of like the religious leader of the Israelites in bondage. And then there's the evil Assyrian who tries to find ways to oppress and kill off the Israelites in their bondage. And so this guy devises a guillotine hanging thing, trap, whatever, to murder all those who will not give loyalty to the king and worship the Assyrian gods. Interestingly enough, the Assyrian gods are the names of Esther and Mordecai. That's the understanding that I know it as. Esther is the goddess Ishtar of the Mesopotamians, and Mordecai is Marduk, the male god. Those two are the famous gods of Mesopotamia. So it's interesting to have that story as it is. And so, yeah, she finds out that this guy is going to kill her people, and she goes to the king and exposes the plot, and the king learns about it for himself and then uses that weapon on the guy who devised it in the first place. And so that Purim is a celebration for the Jews about the Lord getting revenge on those who dare to go up against the Jews to have them murdered. And so with the Jewish history of being chased around Europe and constantly being attacked and bullied and chased out of town numerous occasions, this celebration is of special significance to Jews for a reminder of their oppression that they've had. And here we have it on a supermoon this time, and the supermoon is in the Woman constellation. So yes, this is Ishtar in this significance with a super moon. The moon is at its brightest because it's at its closest to Earth. And right after St. Patrick's Day, the celebration of women getting the priesthood, and the birth of the man-child who will conquer the evil king to take back the throne of his father. Starting to catch on to what's going on here, guys? Probably not. Alright. So, I think there's one more picture. I got it last night. This is this morning, trying to remember what it was that it was significant about. So, I'll check on that first before I go on either showing you my face or showing you that picture. Nope. That picture has to do with April conference, and I'll save that for what's coming up for April conference. Because Mormons, you're not going to like it. And I'm sorry, that's the heavens. That's what they mean. I don't make it up. The ancients already made it up. Just like with the sign of the woman and all the interpretations with Ishtar on Purim. So, yeah, I don't make this up. And interestingly, Ishtar is the model representation who posed for the maker of the Statue of Liberty. Hold on. Okay. Did you know that? The Statue of Liberty was intended as a model representation of the goddess Ishtar of Babylon. Shall I go over Doctrine and Covenants section 1 for you guys? For you Mormons? Oh Babylon, we bid thee farewell. What do you mean Babylon? Babylon's been destroyed for a long time. Farewell to Babylon? I don't get it, Travis. It's not my song. I didn't make it. See, in section 1, there's a discussion about those who have strayed from mine ordinances and have broken mine everlasting covenant. Who would that be, Mormons? I'll give you a hint. It's you. It's not the people of the world. It's you. This is Joseph Smith getting revelation in the beginning days of the church. Section 1, we'll go back up to the 1831, November 1st. November 1st, 1831, and Joseph Smith is saying, hey, Mormons are going to be wicked in the future. Exactly. Interesting, huh? And then 16, he says, these Mormons in the future are going to create their own gods. Not just creating Adam as Heavenly Father, but creating their own gods. Because when you walk in your own way, you've created your own God. Because you're saying, oh, God approves of what I do. I feel that the Spirit is telling me to do this. You've just created your own God. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that's how it works. Idol worship of the Mormons in the future. Because certainly it would be still in the future, wouldn't it, Mormons? Certainly wouldn't be now. Oh, maybe it's those apostates who have been kicked out of the church because they knew too much. Those intellectuals. No, it's you who are still there. And at the end of verse 16, it's talking about how your whole belief system is going to come crashing down upon you. It says, waxeth old and shall perish in Babylon. Oh Babylon, oh Babylon. Ishtar at the New York ports for immigrants. The symbol of America, even though it's a French artist, who the French have their own version, but America was given theirs as well. America is Babylon, with Ishtar as the representation, the goddess, intended to welcome immigrants into our country. See how we treat immigrants now? Interesting, isn't it? Immigrants are being murdered, enslaved, captured, caged. Oh, it's not caged, Travis, because Kirsten said to Congress this a couple of weeks ago, or Wednesday, I guess it was, that cages aren't cages because the cages are bigger than dog cages. Even Babylon the Great, which shall fall. The United States is falling. Everything Trump touches dies. If you don't know that about Trump, then you don't know that about Trump. His whole life, everything he tries to make and do collapses. Gambling casinos, bust. Trump University, bust. Trump charities, bust. Everything Trump touches dies. He's now the president of Babylon. Guess what's happening? Bust. The judge yesterday in Manafort's hearing tried to point out that this particular lawsuit against Manafort has nothing to do with Russian collusion. That's what the charges, they don't talk about that. The charges are supposed to be worded otherwise if they were to be collusion with Russia. But the prosecution did not bring up collusion with Russia as part of the charges against Manafort. But Manafort and his lawyers are going out publicly and saying there's no collusion, judges prove it. And so the judge yesterday, condemned the lawyers and Manafort for doing a PR move of saying there's no collusion. And so she made sure to say, this isn't about collusion. The charges are not about collusion. But then she says, but I see that there is collusion. She's seen the redacted portion that we have not been privy to. She knows the stuff that the prosecution has not charged anybody with yet. And she herself says she already sees that there is a case for collusion with Russia. Oh Babylon, we bid thee farewell. Bye-bye, Mormons. That's why I'm warning you about collusion with Russia for the church. When Nelson announced a temple in Russia, you guys all thought, yay, the work of the Lord is going forth through all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people. And I'm going, oops, the church just destroyed themselves. They got compromised. And so I had to do some research, and I found it. The church is busted. The church is going to collapse too. You guys are following your own God. So, yes, this is the battle, the last day's battle, to take back the throne that belongs to the true king of the kingdom. Which means that both the government and the religion are corrupt and needed to be replaced, conquered, and replaced in the battle. You catching on yet? No? So yeah, I'm going to have to delete a whole bunch of people's comments who are going to be mean, abusive, and ignorant. So, yeah, isn't this fun, Mormons? Astronomy, who would have known? Because this is not astrology. Because astrology is way different than the ancient version of it. See, the ancient version of it is scripture. This is the book of Esther. Reenacted for us in our day. And yeah, Mormons don't see it. They are blind. So you think, oh yeah, but Jesus said in the parable that when the people who were invited didn't go, he said he went to the blind. That's us. No, it's not. Unbelievable. And then here in 17, wherefore, talking about the destruction of Babylon and the collapse of the church, Joseph Smith then goes on to say, wherefore I, the Lord, knowing the calamity which should come upon the inhabitants of the earth. What calamity? The destruction of the United States and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You know, the Mormons. And thus he called Joseph Smith, and spake unto him from heaven, and gave him commandments. And that commandment, one woman, one man in marriage. That's the only one I can find out from his early 1835 Doctrine and Covenants. One man, one woman. That's it. All the rest was talking about the history of the church and the mission orders. So, alrighty. That's pretty much it. Today, we get to find out if Romney is going to again betray our country. If you're not familiar, Romney came to Utah to get an easy ride into the Senate, and as a result of his being in the Senate, he's already sided with the Russians, because you guys don't catch on to this. You're not checking, you're not looking to see what he's doing as a senator. The Senate had a vote last month, I believe, and in that vote, it was to determine whether sanctions should be lifted on a certain Russian oligarch, his businesses, because Obama went and put sanctions on this Russian oligarch's businesses, and that made things tough. And as a result, you have the Trump Tower meeting with Don Jr. and Manafort and Jared Kushner. Yay, the Holy Trinity of corruption. And yeah, what was that meeting all about? Getting rid of the sanctions, and if they do, the Russians will help put Trump into the presidency. You know, the whole conspiracy thing that Trump keeps insisting never happened. And Trump got put into the presidency, and Trump's been pushing to lift those sanctions, and under Romney, not under a full Republican government, which is strange, but finally under Romney, yeah, Romney votes to lift those sanctions against this Russian oligarch who's involved with Manafort in helping supply the information necessary to do an interference in our 2016 election. And he just got, Manafort's busted for that. He confessed and he got convicted. If you're not paying attention, and so yeah, Romney betrayed America by siding with the enemy, by lifting those sanctions. And so today, there's now the vote for Trump's national emergency. House has already said no emergency. So now it's the Senate's turn. And everybody's watching to see if the Republicans are going to betray our country. Because we already know Trump's going to veto it. But will Republicans continue to betray our country? I don't think you understand this. If you didn't watch Cohen's testimony, Cohen warned Republicans in Congress, warning them that their action to give their lives, their careers, their reputations on the sword of Trump will also land them in jail too. That's what Cohen did. And now he is going to prison for it. And so he warned the Republicans, you guys are doing what I've been doing for 10 years. Don't do it. And yet Republicans remain stubborn. Why is that? Why did Governor Huntsman Jr., as a U.S. ambassador to Russia, have Republican Congress people go to Russia on our American 4th of July to have tea with the Russians? You think the church is innocent in all this? You got another thing coming. There is pure evil going on, and the church is a part of it. And so, sanctions lifted, Russian oligarchs' businesses, particular businesses that will allow for real estate in Russia, the church announcing a temple in Russia, then laundering money through LLC corporations gets exposed, sanctions being lifted, Mormons involved. You don't think there's evil afoot? You got another thing coming. And on the 20th of March 2019, we get to take a little celebration reminder about a biblical story. But is it a biblical story of the past history, or is it a prophecy of the future? Or is it just a reminder of the future from the past? O Babylon, we bid thee farewell. You know, I could come out and just tell you Mormons, you're evil, you're going to die. Repent. But that won't do any good for you, will it? You won't listen. And so I try to be a storyteller, but then you get upset also. That's what's called hard-heartedness. It's called past feeling, which is weird because Laman and Lemuel were not past feeling, because they certainly had feelings. They had feelings of murder on their mind. And same with you Mormons. I've seen your comments and I've had to delete you from my channel. But yet YouTube is allowing you guys to come back. So that's disturbing. So there you go. Everything has significance. Don't discount it because you don't understand it. You are not an expert because you know nothing. Okay. Alrighty. That's it.